everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of 10 Minute Tuesday. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. In today's episode, I got Mr. Brent Lightsey in the building. Brent, what's going on, man?
It's not too much. I'm happy to be here with you today, Sekou.
Appreciate you being on, man. So we've done a number
Yeah.
of these. So if you could, Brent, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah. So my name is Brent Lightsey. I'm the founder of FirstLight BI and AI. And what we do is we help companies to get more value out of their data. So for us, that often looks like working with tools like Microsoft Fabric or Snowflake, Microsoft Power BI, and then more and more lately with the AI tool stack that they're offering in Copilot and Copilot Studio and Microsoft Foundry. So whole idea is to try to create more revenue or save expense by getting more value out of that data.
Love it, love it. So I've known Brent for a while. He's really one of the sharpest people that I know. Super smart guy. So I'm gonna brag on you a little bit on the podcast. And you mentioned all the stuff that you all are working on: BI, AI, revenue, saving revenue for companies and stuff. But at a certain point, you had to get your start. So what really compelled you to even get into data to even begin with?
Yeah. It wasn't what I thought of first thing. Actually went to college thinking I would kind of be a math or a history teacher. I really liked those topics. And then I thought, well, I might want to better get something a little bit practical. So I took a computer science class, knowing really nothing about computers, my freshman year in college. And man, I loved it. I loved the programming. I loved the problem solving. It's like, this is just like figuring out puzzles all day. It's a blast. Um, so really it was software development first for me. Ended up really fortunate getting a job out of college at Chesapeake Energy. Had a friend who was like, there's this small company. And so, they grew quite large there for a time, but I was able to do software development there. But what led me into data from there was like, um, we kept building apps whose main purpose was just to collect data. We might call them like CRUD apps, right? To create, read, update, and delete data that were purely to like run reports. It was all about the reports that we were going to produce. So Chesapeake had kind of an advanced financial program to take care of like their futures trading and their hedging. They were the only people doing that. It wasn't like there was off the shelf software. So we were building some of the software to help them manage that. Today I look back on it and go like, oh man, we could have just popped that out in Claude Code like pretty fast now, right? But didn't have that back then, so I had to code it in ASP.NET and SQL Server and all that. But it was really all about the reports they were trying to analyze and keep track of their positions and exposures and all that kind of thing. So that kind of led me into data, and it just seemed like each project I would do, I would get closer into it until finally they just said, "Here, come and be a business intelligence, developer." So kind of coming at it from software development and the BI side, and also from the technology side. And it's such a cool field because people come from all over, right? Other folks start as subject matter experts in their job. They're an engineer or an attorney or just someone who knows how to do their job really well. And then they kind of realize that data can help them do it better, and so they get into it from there. So it's a pretty cool field where we all kind of intersect.
Wow. Yeah. And that's so true.
Yeah.
There are so many people that come from different areas. Like, it's rare where I went to college for this. It's like, no, it's historian or sociology or, I was in something else and then somehow wound up in it. So that's cool. I didn't know you're a coder. So that's good to know, like from a software engineer standpoint. So
Absolutely.
that's really cool. All right. So this next question is more or less of the content. So I interview a lot of people in data and we love our data jobs, but there are certain jobs we probably had in our career that we didn't like. So, what's been your least favorite job that you ever had? An example would be like, I worked construction that one summer and I'll never work in 100-degree weather ever again.
Man, that is a great question, and it's a great one to a good table topic question too, because people always have interesting stories. No, truly, I did work a summer doing landscaping. I actually really liked it, to be honest with you. We'd start early, we'd work hard, we were done by 2:30. I'd go swimming. Of course, you never take your work home with you when you're just like laying sod all day or whatever. Um, but one thing I did remember, and I just now remembered this. I was going to answer something else, so I'm going to give you the impromptu answer. There was a time when I was in high school that I think at the senior PGA came to Tulsa, where I grew up. Southern Oaks, yeah, it was at the Southern Oaks Country Club, and a couple of my friends were like, "Oh yeah, like we could get this really good paying jobs." I mean, this was probably like $8 an hour or something, right? To come and yeah, you can come and help. Just basic, they needed lots of temporary help to host all these people. And so it's like, okay, sure. So I showed up for, you had to come at like 3 in the morning. Seriously, you're super early. Well, it turns out we were doing food service. And so that was one of the first times I'd done that. Like we were preparing, what we were doing is preparing like deli plates. And I remember the biggest problem was that like I was peeling lunch meat apart, right? I was peeling ham and turkey from the sliced stuff apart for hours. Your hands get incredibly cold. And so just tons of respect for anyone who, does that all the time, or, like I'm sure maybe they learn tips and tricks so their hands do not freeze off. But I remember, thinking like, this is hard. This is miserable. I don't want to come back and do this. I think you could have come back for 2 or 3 days. And I was like, I'm not coming back to,
Yeah,
like,
I'm
I'm not going to
good.
do this again. Yeah. But yeah, again, huge respect. Anybody who works in catering or anything like that, I try to always just like, oh man, thank you. I know what you had to do to make this happen.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy because it's like those certain things, whether you work retail, catering, food services, like those service jobs, you get a different level of empathy when you go
Mm,
out and interact with people, like because you've been in their shoes. It might not have been as long, but you've been in their shoes, so there's a level of appreciation for just thank you
mm.
for all that you're doing.
Absolutely. And dude, that was one day. So I mean, I I have been very, very, very blessed. I did do that. I loved that landscaping job. My first job was building a fence for a family, old couple that they wanted a picket fence built, and I kind of like that kind of job too. So I've been very lucky for sure. Yeah, to avoid more situations like that. I think I also went out and helped a farmer and like pick cucumbers and strawberries for like 6 hours, and I think he paid us $10 at the end of the day, something like that. So again, because I think that's what the other workers made too, right? Who weren't necessarily all,
Sure.
yeah, green
Yep.
carded Americans or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So
Yeah.
that, I guess that was another, like you said, empathy, appreciation, perspective on, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
I'm very
Awesome.
lucky, very
Awesome.
blessed.
Awesome.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Awesome. All
yeah.
right. So there is a philosophy I live by. It's called failing forward. So everything that you learn and go through, you just grow from. You don't really fail.
Mm.
It stings, but you learn from the lesson and you evolve from it. So with that in mind, with your career, what's been your biggest failure and what'd you learn from that experience?
Man, this is also a great question and a hard one. But the recency effect is, I'm sure, playing into things. But in many ways, 2025 was a difficult year in our business. There were just lots of lessons learned, so I'll share some of those for sure. At the business level of how we could do projects better. Um, there were some headwinds and difficulties. Like, I mean, basically, we have built dashboards for 5+ years as a business, and now you hear people kind of online saying, "Oh, well, the dashboard is dead," right? Which is not completely true, but it's certainly a seismic shift of how the landscape was changing around us. Um, but I think that for me, like, be just kind of continuing to take on new challenges, you get a lot more opportunities to fail in new ways. So, um, I probably had grown fairly comfortable as a technologist after, I don't know, what, 10, 15 years in the field, as a software developer and then a data expert. Um, but then as I've been trying to transition into being a leader, and now as our company grows, a leader of leaders, I am just failing constantly. And it's great because you have people to tell you, like in real time, when when you're behaving in ways that communicate the wrong things,
Yeah.
or when you fail to communicate. Man, it's great. And you get to see it on your P&Ls. There's your scorecard right there of like, okay, we did not have a great year. So I'll share some. The point is the lessons learned, right? I guess so. A good lesson learned is keep challenging yourself. So it is hard, but it does spur growth. It does challenge you to do it, and kind of the beginner's mindset. I think. Yeah, there's some wonderful books out there about that. A famous cellist wrote a book whose name was slipping my mind. Who wrote a great book about it. You could probably come up with who that is later. Um, and So Yo-Yo Ma is who I'm thinking of course. Sorry. He has this idea of like you're always starting over, right?
Yeah.
And you're always kind of starting from scratch. And I think we're all getting familiar with that concept, that especially if we work in the technology field, that it changes so fast that you kind of have to always be reinventing and relearning. 2 years ago, I wasn't having casual conversations about how many billion parameters a model had, right? Now it seems like that's like lunch conversation, right, with salespeople. So, okay, that's new, right? Um, yeah. So, yeah, learning to just keep growing. I have a lot of books back there that can be very helpful. Sometimes hiring coaches can be really helpful. I've used a business coaching program since I started my business, and I continue to use it. I mean, those of us who are in the program for a while, like to joke, like we just don't learn, I guess. But it really is that the challenges I was having at the beginning, I'm having different challenges now. I'm
Yeah.
learning how to lead leaders. I tell you what else, Sekou, I think it's, for me, I think it was just recognizing some of where my own weaknesses are. And sometimes they can be around the very fundamental stuff of just like discipline to follow through, holding people accountable, essentially doing the things I expect others to do consistently. Those things are hard for all of us, but we keep challenging ourselves, and you can learn. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can learn these new things. So that's a great way to phrase the question, because just because you're not good at something today, it doesn't mean you're not good at it.
Exactly.
Period,
Yeah,
right?
there's plenty of room for us to grow and evolve. And
Yeah.
you had a
Yeah.
great 2025, man. Don't be so hard on yourself, man. You had a great
Hey,
year,
I
man.
appreciate it. We are still here. We did grow revenue wise,
Yeah.
which was great. It just,
Yeah.
I've been processing that very question. Yeah.
Yeah, nah, you did great, man. You're
Thanks,
crushing
man.
it, man. You're still active.
I
Your
appreciate
doors
it.
aren't shut down, so
No,
that's
no.
success. So things are great.
Thanks.
All right, so the target audience for my podcast are
Yeah.
people who are just starting out in data or they're pivoting to data. So with that in mind, what is one piece of advice you give someone who's just starting out in their career?
Yes. Okay. First of all, we talked about empathy earlier, and I'm sympathetic that it is a different time, right? That the companies are kind of reconsidering what they hire less experienced folks for. And so, yeah, I just want to express that definitely recognize that. The one thing that is just always going to help you is learning. And so, no doubt, many of you are probably already engaged in that. If you're watching this podcast, you're learning, right? You must be interested in that. But obviously, LLMs can be a great start. So maybe you're working with Claude or another tool to help you tackle, how to tackle certain tasks. Using free resources like LinkedIn Learning, and something to kind of mention, like I know locally our library will have a lot more subscriptions than you might expect to some of these paid skill platforms. So just I know that sounds kind of simple, but to ask your librarian. And I would say don't shy away from reading the book. Like I know not everyone learns exactly in the same way, but if you are the kind of person who you feel like I can just read this book a little bit at a time, that is still really valuable because it's high quality information and it lays it out in sort of a sequential step by step by step. So I think in my closet over there, I have a like SQL fundamentals book, super thick, right? And I didn't know SQL at the time, right? So I just started reading it, and it was excellent for teaching the abstract concepts to me. So I'm like, okay, a select statement's a projection, and like from those concepts, I could really begin to build skills on top of those. So then local networking groups are fantastic. Podcasts are awesome. We didn't have as many of those when I was starting out my career. Yeah, so I mean, just basically set yourself a learning plan, because the one advantage you have though is that we're all starting again, like I said about the billion parameters, like we're all basically starting from 2023 again. Even those of us, I've been working for 20 years now, 22 years. Wow. So we're all starting over basically every year. So that's a good thing, is no one else, nobody has 20 years on you in these new technologies. But we do have the understanding of the fundamentals that underlie them, right? Like I understand like physical data storage layers, and I understand the networking going on. I think also, can I just say one other thing on that?
Yeah,
Like just be curious about other people's business. That has a huge way. If you want to have a career, you're going into business, right? And whatever business you think you might be interested in, like, um, let's say maybe you get involved, maybe you're working to start at a coffee shop or something like that. Like, get a little curious about like looking at things even from your manager's perspective of like, okay, where does all this stuff come from in the store, right? How do they get all the right coffee at the right time? How do they know how much coffee we're likely to sell, right? How do the payment processes work? How does this mobile app and all this technology work, right? um, and it could also be the craft that you're actually in, the craft of actually, being a barista and making coffee. So I think just being like curious about other people's businesses that's been very valuable to me. To like be like, okay, because I get, as a consultant, I get dropped into new businesses that I haven't seen before. So,
Yeah.
oh, we process insurance claims. Okay, never done that. Let me figure out. But I know,
Exactly.
I know there's common steps because I've seen a lot of different kinds of businesses. There's the same ideas. We make a promise, we keep a promise, we get paid. Like that's the same theme that is in every business. And then, just different terminology in
Right.
each one. So I
Awesome.
hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
super helpful, man. That's super
Okay.
helpful. I still pick up the data warehouse toolkit, right? When I'm thinking about dimensional modeling and star schema and different things. So always pick up the books. I think I have what I have: storytelling with data, the DAX patterns, definitive guide of DAX. Right, I'm looking at my book, so always reading a book is always pleasant knowledge. And even with LLMs, there's nothing like flipping the pages and being able to actually just go there, right? We can upload the PDFs and
Right.
do all that, but there's nothing like physically going in and connecting to the page and understanding what's going on.
There's something about that. Another human chose those words. Another human laid that book out, and the editor chose the content in the format in a way that So you could, yeah, like you said, you connect to it on a different level. That's very good.
Yeah.
And I mean, Seiko, as I think about it, like, I don't know, many of the people I really admire, who and I think of as the best and the top of their field, they've read the books, right?
Yeah.
They've read the definitive guide to DAX, and because they knew, like, I need to be here and I am here,
Yeah.
right? So like, how can I even start that climb? And I mean, starting at the bottom, the
Yeah.
books have the fundamental knowledge usually, right? And then the
Mhm.
internet's got the latest. So yeah.
Totally agree. Totally agree. All right, Brett, where can listeners find you at online?
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I am pretty active on LinkedIn, so please look me up there on LinkedIn under FirstLight BI and AI. I do also have a SaaS company that we call Argus PBI, so you may see me posting some things about that. And we're more focused on helping companies operate Power BI well. We do some Power BI management reporting. But yeah, LinkedIn's really the best place, or at my website, firstlightbi.ai. And yeah, love to meet and connect with any of you if there's a way I can help you with your career. I know it can be hard to get that LinkedIn network starting, so I always try to, please, I'm open to that. Like, here, I connect with me. So I join my network, right? So definitely open. It is kind of an awkward statement. If I was a senior in college, I can only imagine, like, oh, sure, I'm going to go get all these adults and ask them to connect with. What does that mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Brett, thank you so much for taking time out today, man. This was great.
Oh, this was so great. Thank you very much, Sekou. And so one of these days, I'd love to hear. I'll go back and watch all your podcasts. I want to hear your answers to all these questions.
It's coming. It's coming. So it'll
Okay.
be
All
there. It'll
right.
be there soon. I got a surprise for the
Yeah.
guests. So it'll be here soon
Oh,
before you
good,
know
good,
it.
good.
So
Okay. All
this
right.
this is awesome.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Thanks, man.
Teaser. And then, as I said in the beginning, if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll talk to y'all next week. Y'all have a great day.